The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It's Thursday and it's March 14th. We're getting ready for a big St. Patrick's Day this weekend and I hope that you're all going to celebrate. We won't be live that day and it's a good thing because I couldn't wear any green anyway. I don't know if we always tell you this, but we shoot on a green screen and so we'd have to do a bare show with nothing in the background and that would be, I don't know, less than fun. In any case, we're going to be with you live for the next 2 hours talking about everything having to do with autism and how you and I can be more effective, more efficient in our lives. Whether you're a parent, teacher, or practitioner who's working with a child or a young adult or an adult on the autism spectrum, or if you yourself are an individual who is on the autism spectrum, we hope that we can hook you up with information to help you to do the kinds of things that you want to do to be that more efficient, more effective. We look at autism from a 360-degree perspective here because there's so many different pieces to this puzzle, right? There's the financial piece, the emotional piece, you know, keeping a family together, putting food on the table, and what food to put on the table, right? So we talk about all those things and more. We do talk a lot here about ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, because it's the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism that is effective for treating all of our kids. Now, are there other things that people do in conjunction with ABA? Yes, and we're going to be talking about those as well, especially today. And most importantly, we're here to talk about the things that you want to talk about. This whole show is meant to be interactive. So Emily's going to start to cycle through some of the different ways that you can get a hold of us and that you can pose a question or call in with a question, and other ways that you can watch the show. Because there are a lot of ways that you can watch our show right now, but there's only one way to watch it live, and that's at www.autism-live.com. When you go to that site, the show is airing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on that site, so you always have a way to watch us. It's on an endless loop that the show will play the most recent episodes there. But we are live 2 hours a day, Monday through Friday of most weeks, and the time that we're live is 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. to noon Pacific Time, and then wherever you are in the world, you'll need to do the math from those two configurations. We are in 103 countries, and I'm very proud to say that. But when you go live onto the site, whatever time zone that happens to be in your area of the world, when you go there, you see a box. It says, questions we're answering right now. When we're live, that box is active. You can put your cursor there, you can type and hit enter, and it shows up magically on my screen. You can tell me where you're watching from, what types of topics you want to talk about. You can ask a question of an expert that we have here in the studio. So all of those different things, even if it's just to say, I'm feeling alone today and I need to feel like somebody's in this with me, because guess what? I'm in this with you. And there's a whole lot more people that you can't see that are also in this with you. So I hope that you'll take the opportunity to, you don't have to log in, by the way. You don't have to put a credit card down. You don't have to give us your name or your address. In fact, we don't know any of those things. When you type in, the information comes in. I do have a filter that I can take private information out. If you want to send us your email and say, hey, my question is about this, and I'd love it if somebody also emailed me this and so information, I can take that out before I show it to the audience at large. So feel free to put what you need to put in there, and I'll edit if I need to so that we don't put your personal information out. Hey, I have to do a little bit of a shout out. We had Lisa Gibbons on the show yesterday talking about this book, which I'm loving. Can I just say, take 2. And this is Your Guide to Creating Happy Endings and New Beginnings. And Lisa Gibbons, I don't want to say Lisa Gibbons was fabulous yesterday. She was truly remarkable. And while she was here, it came up about the fact that I'm going to be shaving my head on April 8th for Compassion in Action. And she said, I don't know what I did with it here. She said, you should be doing a thing where people donate money to a charity if you'll let them cut off a lock of your hair leading up to that. And so she did. She cut off a lock of my hair, and I have no idea. Oh, there it is. Okay. So she took some scissors and just hacked this off my head yesterday. The scary part, because I have curly hair, you can't even tell. So I'm thinking, how many of these could I hack off between now and April 8th when I shave my head? How much money could we raise for different charities without anyone even noticing? And if my hair gets a little wonky, it'll get a little, let's face it, it's wonky to begin with, right? So if you know somebody who'd like to come on the show and cut off a lock of my hair for a donation to the charity of their choice, we're putting compassion in action, right? It's all about everybody doing something kind for someone else. So if somebody wants to cut off a lock of my hair, heaven knows I'm up for it, all right? And we want to thank Lisa Gibbons for doing that. She made a donation to Autism Care and Treatment today, a very generous donation for having done that. Fabulous. All right, we like to start every morning. By the way, before I get too much further down the road, want to remind everybody, although we're going to be talking about autism today and every day that we're here, I have to remind everybody that I am not an expert in autism. I'm an autism parent. My son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5, and he is now 9.5. And that's what my passion is. And I know how important it was, and it still is to me, to get information, to get hooked up with the right information for what my child needs right now. And I want to be a conduit for you. I'm not the expert, but I want to be a conduit to hook you up to the answers that you need. And I feel very privileged to have the opportunity to be able to do that with you. So do put me to work and make me find information for you, because I really, truly love that. Speaking of which, we like to start every morning with something that we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is the time of day when we take one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to make sense of it. We give you an actual definition of what the thing means, and then we'll give you a watered-down working definition to try to make sense for what it means for our individual lives, right? So today, again, new jargon that we haven't used before, and we talked about this a little bit, though, on Tuesday, and our term is Methyl B12. You may have heard of people talking about giving their kids shots, and sometimes they'll say, well, I give my child B12 shots, and in actuality, mostly what they're talking about is giving almost all cases, I think, they're talking about giving them methyl B12. So what does methyl B12 stand for? Our actual definition of what it means is methylcobalamin. And I could have put a really lengthy definition here for you that would have spun all of our heads, and it was so wordy that I would have needed a pronouncing dictionary to pronounce all the terms. So our working definition for what methylcobalamin is a form of vitamin B12 that is considered to be the most absorbable. And we wanted to tell you why this is important for some of our kids on the autism spectrum. So we want to let you know what methyl B12 does and what B12 in general does. Methyl B12 is needed to protect nerve tissue and maintain the myelin sheaths that cover the nerve endings. You know how if you've ever seen a picture of a nerve ending and it's got a very thin skin on it, that's called the myelin. And if you don't protect that myelin, it can lead to all kinds of bad things happening, including degenerative diseases that we all don't want to have, correct? Vitamin B12 in general is required for proper digestion, absorption of foods, protein synthesis, and to prevent anemia. It also helps to metabolize fats and carbohydrates. Vitamin B12 is key in the development of red blood cells. Adequate levels of this vitamin are essential for the creation of glutathione and to assist the body in detoxification. Now, we've talked before about the fact that some of our kids on the autism spectrum, the phrase that I like to use because I can understand it, their bodies, whatever is going on within them, they're not able to take out the trash. We're all exposed to toxins on a daily basis, and we see that there are a lot of people that have compromised immune systems, and their bodies aren't able to process toxins the way other people can. And we see that with a great many children on the autism spectrum, not all of them, right? But for a lot of them, and you can go to very specific doctors and get your child tested to see if they're processing their toxins. And if they're not, there are things that you can do to help, and methyl B12 is one of them. But take a look at some of the different things that we're talking about here. What do our nerves do? They are sensory, right? And our sensory processing. And if someone's myelin is not doing its job, they might be more likely to feel things at a higher level. They might feel more pain, or they might feel less pain, or like numbness, right? Or they might be particularly sensitive to light or to intense sound, because that's all sensory, right? So if you have a child who has sensory issues, it might be that there is not enough methyl B12 to get the job done there. Look at proper digestion, absorption of food, protein synthesis, and to prevent anemia. We see with some kids on the autism spectrum that they have gut issues, that they're, pushing and rocking and having either intense constipation or intense diarrhea, that sometimes they are, a check of their blood shows that they're not getting enough nutrients, and that they sometimes, we talked earlier this week about having trouble digesting the proteins of gluten and casein found in grains and in milk. And this methyl B12 has something to do with that as well. It also helps to metabolize fats and carbohydrates. We all love the idea of that, right? Red blood cells, and it helps to detoxify. So there are a great many things there that vitamin B12 and methyl B12 have the potential to help with a child on the autism spectrum. Now, there are different ways that you can get methyl B12. There are some places that now give it in a spray, a nasal spray that you can put in the children's noses. They make lollipops that have methyl B12 in them. But because if a child is found to be deficient, if you go to the doctor and the doctor says, no, your child is deficient in methyl B12, the easiest way for it to be absorbed is through a shot that they get in the tuchus, and that requires a prescription. Some of the other things, like the lollipops, do not require a prescription, but you're not going to get that. If your child is truly deficient, if you're trying to maintain, perhaps a lollipop is going to be, and they taste good, can I tell you? They're bright red and they taste good because methyl B12 is bright red. And I've had the lollipops before and they're quite luscious. So I will say that. But if you're trying to get a child caught up, you're probably looking at going to a pediatrician and asking about if it's appropriate to do the shots. It's a whole other thing. And I shared on the show the other day that I was reluctant, but it was found in my child's blood work that it was necessary for my child to get caught up. And he's been taking them for a while. He still requires them because it takes a long time to get caught up. And I do see a difference in his language when he's had it versus when he doesn't. And I feel that I personally owe it to my child, if there's something that is good for him, that is healthy, and that he responds well to give him that opportunity. So again, you can talk to your doctor about that. Somebody said, somebody wrote in and said, totally off subject. Did Jem have a speech delay? When did he start talking? That, actually, that's not off topic at all. He initially was, he was acquiring language actually ahead of schedule. And then he gradually, not overnight, lost almost all of it. So he said his first word at 9 months. He said mama at 9 months. And he was talking in sentences. Man, it's hard for me to gauge that anymore, but he was talking in sentences. And that was before his second birthday that he was talking in sentences. And right before his second birthday, we had a couple of different things that I look to and go, okay, this is when this started to deteriorate. First, it started with an antibiotic that he took, and the language was... It seemed to be going away a little bit at a time. And then he got a really bad dose of the rotavirus. And almost all kids get a dose of rotavirus by the time that they're 5. It's very common, right? Even on the Lysol commercial, they talk kills rotavirus, right? But unfortunately, for some kids, it can be so bad that it's life-threatening if they don't figure out what it is. Most kids, it's just like a little stomach flu and they get a couple of days of diarrhea, but he had to be hospitalized for multiple days. And there was a moment when we thought we were going to lose him. And he looked just like those posters that you see of kids from third world countries. His eyes had sunk in. His body had lost the ability to retain any fluid. So he was dehydrated extremely, and he was in the hospital. And they were giving him IVs, but it was just coming out. And his eyes had sunk in, his belly distended, his legs and his arms had gotten just like so tiny, like those pictures that you see of kids in third world, which I did not know all these years, that when you see a child with that's looking like that, it's not because they weren't fed properly and they're in a third world country. It's because they have rotavirus. And you know how when they say on those Feed the Children things about just a couple of pennies a day will save these kids? They're not kidding. Because after every medical test that they did for my child, do you know what fixes the rotavirus? Sugar water. Like a teaspoon of sugar water a couple of times fixes the rotavirus. I know, like how, and I had no idea. But once they determined, oh, this is rotavirus, and they gave him a little bit of sugar water, and my child rebounded. Oh my goodness, right? But after that, language was gone, and the ability to make eye contact was gone. It was gone. And virtually he could still say a couple of words. Like I think we had a 5-word vocabulary, but he couldn't use them functionally. It didn't mean anything. So he might say ball, but not to request a ball, right? He would, babble and go blah, 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 blah. And occasionally a word would be in that, but it didn't make any sense. So by the time, and that was like the week before his second birthday. And then he was diagnosed at 2.5. So, and the Methyl B12 helps with the language. It helps with the language quite a bit. So that wasn't off topic, and hopefully that answered your question. But that rotavirus thing, devastating. Okay. In any case, Methyl B12, something you can talk about with very specific pediatricians. I don't think the run-of-the-mill pediatrician will... I don't want to assume, but I haven't heard of a whole lot of regular pediatricians diagnosing and looking at this. You pretty much need to be looking at an expert. There are MAPS doctors, and there's a MAP convention here in Los Angeles next week that we're still hoping to get some coverage of, and it would be those doctors that would have the best idea and be able to prescribe. If you're going to do the shots, it must be a prescription. You have to special order it. We use Hopewell Pharmacy, and they're fabulous, and they ship it, and it's they're wonderful. Okay, so that's methyl B12. So when you hear people talking about it, that's what we're talking about, those shots. All right, we always have a question of the day for you, and today is no different. We are asking today, because we're talking about biomedical this week, what biomedical interventions are you interested in trying with your child? I know there are a lot of people out there that love trying different biomedical things. Some of you have written in and said, I'm not doing it because the whole thing scares me, and I reminded you that biomedical is a big, huge spectrum of things. Technically, the gluten-free diet, casein-free diet is biomedical intervention. And there are a whole host of things that you can do. And while there are a bunch of things that I'm not interested in doing with my child, I can tell you that there are a lot of things that are out there that are FDA approved, that are used very commonly, that are biomedical, that make a big difference depending on what the child needs. So, but sometimes your insurance won't pay for everything. I know that my personal insurance through my husband's work does not pay for the methyl B12 shots, which is a big disappointment to me, but they have said that if enough people keep requesting it, that eventually they will, right? So it can be costly, right? And usually what I see for parents, and I know this is for me, I have like a hierarchy of what do I want to do next? What kinds of things do I want to cycle in because they're age appropriate, or because we have the funding for it, or, you know, we got tax money back, whatever it is. Once my husband won money on a game show, and it was like, all right, and what are we doing with that money now? So in any case, what is on your list of things to do biomedically? I know years ago, when my son was getting ready to go to kindergarten, in the summer, we did a big push that we did a course of diflucan for yeast for my son with a doctor's very intense scrutiny. And it made a huge difference for my individual child. And we kind of cycle in and out of yeast. And I know this summer I'm looking at doing another yeast that's a little more comprehensive, probably not diflucan, but taking some stuff out of his diet and trying to clean up some yeast for him, because he's just been, he's cycling back, and I don't want him to get an overgrowth of yeast. So that's kind of on my list of things to do, is to do a big yeast protocol for him. But I'd love to hear from you guys. What are you thinking about? What's on your list of things that you're getting ready to do? And even, you know, are you waiting for a period of time when the kids are out of school? Are you waiting for some funding? Are you waiting for your ship to come in? Please, I understand that. Okay, we always have a topic of the week, and of course, I usually give it away by now. But our topic of the week is biomedical intervention. I think it's worthwhile to talk about these things because they're with individual kids, right? It's not like across the board, oh yeah, make sure you want to do that, right? With ABA, I know that it's effective for all of our kids. I cannot say that with biomedical intervention, and I don't think anybody can say that, but there are, if your individual child is looked at, there might be something in there that's of use to your child that will help them to be healthier. And we know that if a child is healthy, we get more done, right? That just makes sense. And that there are certain things that I can eat that aren't good for our technical director, Emily, and certainly vice versa, because I'm allergic to so many things. There are things that Emily can eat that I can't. And we see that outside of the spectrum, right? So why wouldn't that also be true of our kids on the spectrum? So we will talk about a little more about biomedical intervention later on today, and some of the other things that we have going on today. We have a school tip for you, which I'm very excited about. We have good stuff with Ashley. This is turning out to be one of my favorite parts of the week, because Ashley Colis comes in and brings something to let us know about, and she's such a good shopper and also a therapist. She works with our kids, and she has the inside dish on really cool stuff. So excited that she's going to be here in just a couple of minutes. And then a little later, we're going to be breaking it down with Angela Persicke, a BCBA. And you know what we're breaking down today? All right, get ready. You're going to be really excited. How to help our kids make friends and keep friends. Since so many of you were writing in about that this week, that's what we decided to talk about today. So you're going to want to be around for that. That's in the next hour. So all of that and more. And of course, it's the myth of the day today. So stick with us. We're going to come back with good stuff with Ashley Colis. We'll be right back. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live. As the mom of a young man on the autism spectrum, I frequently look to the world and hope for compassion. Well, recently I told my son that he should treat others the way he wants them to treat him. That's when I realized that it's high time that I start walking my talk. This April, for Autism Awareness Month, Autism Live is asking everyone to perform an act of compassion. Do something nice for someone else. That's why I've decided to shave my head to show support for a young dad who's fighting brain cancer. How will you show your compassion? Compassion is a tool of change, but only when we take action. How we treat others teaches them how to treat us in return. This April, the autism community has the ability to lead by example by putting compassion in action. This can be a small act or a large one. It can be close to home or towards someone on the other side of the planet. If we all perform an act of compassion, who knows? We might just change the world. Get involved and show us your compassion in action on Facebook.com/AutismLive. And tune in on April 8th to watch me shave my head live on the air. We are not powerless. We can create change. Compassion in action. Welcome back. It's time for Myth of the Day. I misspoke and said that we were coming back to Ashley. That's a little bit later. But it is time for the Myth of the Day. And there are so many myths that circulate about autism. And I do feel like we all have a responsibility to get as educated as we can, but how many hours are there in the day, right? And there's always things that you don't know, and until somebody asks a question, how are you going to know that that's even a question to ask? So whenever we run across something, I like to at least once a week say, hey, here's a myth, and let's squash it. And the trouble with myths is that there's always some element, a teeny tiny thread of truth in it that makes it believable, right? So here's our myth of the day, that you can't do, when you're doing ABA, you can't do anything else with a child with autism. So you certainly, if you're going to do biomedical intervention, then you're not doing ABA. And if you're doing ABA, you're not doing biomedical intervention. And if you're doing, this type of therapy, you're doing equine therapy, then you're not doing ABA and you're not doing biomedical, right? That it appears in autism, sometimes people go, well, there's camps. Well, there's these people over here that do biomedical, and there's these people over here that do ABA. And there's these people over here who, do this other, name all the different types of therapy and treatments that there are, right? The truth of the matter is, so here's where we squash the myth. Well, the element of truth in it is that when you're looking at intervention, people who deal in those different camps, that's their expertise, and that's all they're going to deal with. So if you go and talk to biomedical people, they will say to you, well, my expertise is biomedical. I can't do ABA for you. Right? It's like when you go to, there are general practitioners that we go to for doctors, but when you go to somebody who's a urologist, you're not going to go to them to talk to them about stuff that's happening with your eye. Right? But fortunately, we have general practitioner doctors that we go to that are one-stop shop that we say, I think I might have a bladder infection and I've got something in my eye. Now, if it's beyond a certain scope, then they refer us to a specialist. Well, in the field of autism, as a parent, this is my take on it, we don't have general practitioners, right? We just don't. We have people who do ABA, and we have people who do biomedical, and we have people that do equine therapy. And we have people who nutritionists who specialize in the diet, and we have people who do pivotal response training, and we have people who do floor time, and we have people who name all of these different things. They do art therapy and they do music therapy, and that's their area of expertise. But the trouble is we don't have a one-stop shop, and more places are noticing this and saying, okay, enough is enough. Somebody, there has to be a place that parents can put together and cobble this all together. And I think, and occasionally you probably will meet somebody along the way who says, I have heard people talk about an ABA provider who says, well, if you're going to do ABA, then we don't want you to do anything else. I think that's a little bit old school. I'll be honest with you. It doesn't interest me as a person, because your doctor wouldn't do that, right? Your eye doctor would not say, I don't want you to see the urologist. So I don't really, if you're working with an ABA provider who says, we don't want you to do biomedical treatment, that's really old school. I don't think there's very many people saying that, but if they are, I would certainly ask them, what's up with that? Why? My child is having stomach pain and you don't want me to take a medicine for my child that's having a stomach pain. You're going to tell me that my child shouldn't take an antibiotic? What's up with that? And I think the vast majority of ABA providers are not going to be that way with you anymore. I think there were a couple of people that were like that, and it got very talked about, and I do think that has passed. If it hasn't, and you're dealing with an ABA provider who's feeling that way, I would ask them what area of expertise that they have in the biomedical that they're weighing in on. That would be my personal thing. And I think when you talk to parents who have had great success with their children, and I certainly did, after my child was diagnosed, anytime I could meet a parent who had a child with autism, I would say, how's your child doing and what did you do? To get them, especially if I felt like the child had made great progress. And especially if the child had regressed into autism like my child, I would be, saying, can I get your phone number? What did you do? Tell me when you did it. How did it work? What happened? How'd you pay for it? I was just nosy Nelly because I wanted the information. And what I found remarkably was that in most cases, it was parents who said, I'm not participating in this. I only do one thing. I'm going to do what's right for my child. And I see clearly that ABA is right for my child. And in conjunction with that, I'm going to get my child healthy. And I'm going to keep my child interested. So we're doing ABA therapy, but we're involving, because my child is so into horses, we're involving our equine therapist person. And they're involved in the ABA. And this is really reinforcing my child. So we're doing this. And we're having a doctor take care of this medical issue with our child at the same time. And as we do that, we see our child is more likely to learn with the ABA. And when we reinforce it with time with the horse, we're getting more done. This makes sense to me. I think it makes sense to the vast majority of parents. And I saw without a doubt that those were the parents who were getting something done. They looked at their child as an individual. And again, I go back to the thing about every single one of our children can benefit from ABA. So I think that that's a great starting point. But I by no means want to suggest, and I don't think that anybody should ever suggest to you that you shouldn't seek other. I mean, for sure you want your child to be healthy, right? So if your child is having a medical issue, you're going to seek help with that. And it may be, and we certainly have been hearing a lot about different circumstances, and I know I've experienced it firsthand, that you take a child with autism to an emergency room or to a doctor who does not understand, and unfortunately there are still pediatricians out there who don't get what autism is and what it isn't, and they say, oh, we're not going to treat because we think it's autism. Well, get a new doctor if that's the case. If your child is having any kind of physical ailment whatsoever, and if your child is sitting and pushing their fists into their stomach and rocking, and you go to the pediatrician and the pediatrician is telling you, oh, that's just stereotypic behavior and there's nothing to do about that, find a new pediatrician, because there's nothing in that sentence that's true. Children who put their fists in their stomach and rock are often, not always, but often in pain. And you want to make sure that there's nothing medically going on with this child's stomach, right? We don't dismiss that. And even if it is that stereotypic behavior, that it's just a repetitive thing and that it feels good, there's something you can do about it. There absolutely is something, because it's really hard to learn, and to learn how to write and to learn how to read, if this is what you're doing to make yourself feel better. And we don't leave it at that for any child. So I think a comprehensive approach that is child specific is the order of the day. And this idea that when you're doing one thing, you can't do other things, myth. Don't participate in it. Don't let someone tell you that that's what you need to participate in. Thank them, leave, and never talk to them again, is my personal advice, if it's at all possible. If it's somebody that you have to deal with because they're the doctor that your insurance, then smile and nod at them and figure out a way that you can do other things in conjunction with what you're doing with them. But getting the right help for your child and your individual child is what has to be first and foremost, right? That's what we're all about. Okay, I think that Ashley is here. We're going to take a break and come back and do good stuff with Ashley. Stick with us.
Hi everyone, welcome back. For the month of March, we're going to be making a rain stick. And what's really cool about this project is that the steps are pretty simple, so your kids are going to be able to practice a lot of their fine motor skills when making it. Another bonus is that once the rain stick is completed, you guys can use it for a bunch of different programs under cognition and executive functions. Things that deals with, seeing versus hearing, or using it also for auditory memory. But we'll get to that later. First, we gotta make the rain stick. So, the materials you'll be needing are a paper towel roll, tape, paper, aluminum foil, rice, and any kind of materials you want to use to decorate your rain stick with. Alright, let's get to it. So the first thing you want to do is get a piece of tin foil that's about double the length as your paper towel roll. I got this, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll it up, like so, and I'm going to wrap my paper towel roll with it. Okay, and don't worry if it's too messy, okay? This is just to give us a basic shape. Now once I've got this, I'm going to make it a little bit tighter, and I'm going to roll it and stick it inside of my paper towel roll. I want to make sure that it goes all the way through the paper towel roll. And what this does, it acts like a buffer so the rice will go down slowly through the tube. And see how that's in nice and in there? Okay, now that I have that, I'm going to take a piece of paper and cover one side. And I'm going to take a piece of tape and secure it over the bottom. All right, now that I've got this on, I'm gonna take my rice and pour it in. All right, now that I got the rice in there, I'm gonna seal the other side. Now that this is constructed, don't forget to use your imagination to decorate this any way that you want. And here's my finished rain stick. Don't forget you can decorate yours however you see fit. I decided to use tape and pipe cleaners, but you could always paint it, add sparkles, just whatever you feel like doing. Now that this is done, let's take a listen to it. What does that sound like to you? I think it sounds like rain too. What does rain look like? Ah, that is what rain looks like. You can ask them a whole bunch of different questions using this after it's already been made. Well, until next time, craft on. Bye, guys.
Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. It's time for good stuff with Ashley. Ashley Colis is here with us. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me back.
I love this segment now because I look forward to it because you're introducing me to all these new things, and you are an excellent shopper. It should say that. I'm a very good shopper. It should say that on your vitae that you are an excellent shopper, and you are also somebody who has a great deal of experience working with kids on the autism spectrum. Mm-hmm. And you've worked extensively as a therapist, and we're thrilled that we have this take on things. An excellent shopper who knows what our kids need. It's just a fabulous thing.
Yeah, I love things and playing and fun stuff. And I work with kids who are not on the spectrum too, so I do lots of the stuff outside. So I know what all the kids are doing, what's cool, what's not cool, and that's important.
Because Ashley has come in before and consulted with us about how to get a babysitter that's appropriate for our kids too. So she's a wonderful resource for that. And if you guys have questions about a product that does something, or if you have questions about babysitting, Ashley's going to be joining us on a weekly basis. We're calling it Good Stuff with Ashley, because that's exactly what, it's all the good stuff.
It is good.
It's very fun. So you have a product for us today that you want to talk about.
We have something really good today. This is an interactive storybook.
Okay.
So this it's not a new thing, but it's a newer thing. And these are apps that you can purchase. And they have them for Android, and they have them for Apple products. And this one in particular is called Nighty Night, and it's a bedtime app. And I like to read all the reviews for things, and this one had great reviews from parents saying it's a great before bedtime story, but also your kid can be involved, and very minimal words. So this is going to be for a younger child, or probably between 2 and maybe 7.
Okay.
Depending. So, and there's lots of things to touch, so it has that sensory, and it's really adorable. I love it.
I love the idea of this, because we used to have the board books that were sometimes interactive, that you know, pat the bunny, those kinds of things, and to take it to this level of technology and pair it with getting our kids ready for bed, super duper smart. Right. Wonderful. So we have a little clip that we can show of what this app actually looks like. So take a look. This is Nighty Night. And so it's got cute graphics. And so look, you touch these animals and they do different things. Really spectacular. And lovely graphics, I have to say, Ashley. They're absolutely beautiful.
And then you put them to bed. So you play with the animals, and they make noises. They make their animal sounds, and then you turn out the light, and they yawn, and they do their thing, and they go to bed. But they're really all
so the kids put the animals to bed, and he reminds us here at the end, don't forget to turn out the light. What a great lesson, because we're taking and modeling, you know, having them teach the animals to go to bed, which is what we're trying to do with them. Great. I have to say, when you talked about this and said it was Nighty Night, years ago, when we could not get Jem to go to sleep, and I literally, I didn't know what was going to happen. We'd have to drive him around the block, sometimes till 3 in the morning.
Wow.
And when we went to take our parent-teacher classes for ABA, we went in for the first class, and the teacher said, okay, what behavior would you most like to change? And my husband and I, it was like we were on a game show. We sat there and we're like, okay, what about this, and what about this, making a list, and then prioritizing, and what has to happen first, and finally it was time, and the guy said, what's your answer? And we said, we have to get him to go to sleep at a reasonable time, or else we're not going to be able to do anything else. I can't handle it. I can't do it. And he said, okay, and he put in place this whole series of events that we were going to do every day, but it included a video, and it was still, we had to get it on VHS back then. This is how long ago. A video on VHS that was called Nighty Night, and it was about animals. And so I'm wondering if it's the same company. The company that does this app is Good Beans, and I'm going to go home and look at the video to see if it's also the same company, if they've just taken it into this century for us.
This company is a really good one. They have a couple of other apps. I think the character in it is named Froggy.
Okay.
And Froggy has lots of adventures, and those books have more words and have more actions going on.
And they're interactive books as well, apps? Oh, wonderful.
They're really great. So I really like the other books they have, and I think one of the things I get asked about a lot is about sleep.
Yeah.
And parents that are sleep deprived, you know, we all talk about EOs and MOs, so you know, sleep is something really important.
Yes.
And having a routine is something that we see works, but parents who are sleep deprived themselves are just trying anything they can and changing things up all the time.
Yeah.
So it is good to have a routine, because what they are events that signal what's going to happen next and next and next. And then our brains start to think, like, for example, I don't study in bed, because when I'm in bed, that signals to me that it's time for sleep, not time for my brain to absorb stuff.
And that's a proper way of looking at it. A lot of us tend to do things in bed that we shouldn't. But But I love this idea of the routine, and here's an app for $1.99, and it keeps your child's interest because they can do things with the animals and then put them to bed. And I can see it's calming music. It just brings them down, does half the work for you.
It's really so simple. And the other thing I want to mention about interactive stories is that iTunes and iBooks actually offers a bunch of classic stories like The Velveteen Rabbit and The Little Engine That Could for free.
Okay.
In the iBooks library. So you have to go through and search for them. So that's really great. So you can use your device as a tool.
Yes.
And I know a lot of parents get concerned, like, I don't want them to just play these games and video games and these types of things, but there are so many functions that iPads and tablets have in our lives now, in the school setting, in the home setting.
Yes.
Everywhere.
I have to say that we now, because for Christmas, Jem got an iPad finally, and that's one of the things that we do at night when we read. We're reading the Just So stories, and we got it for free. And I'll tell you the other thing that's lovely about it is that you can turn off all the lights in the room, and there's just the light from the device, which also sets the child up for it's time to go. Time to go off to the La La Land.
Right.
Which is truly wonderful. And we have seen a couple of the other interactive books, too, that even, I have to say, he's about to be 10, and he thinks they're great fun.
There are amazing ones that the child can actually change the outcome of the story.
Yes.
So those ones get a little bit more complicated, and they usually have more words and require a higher level of reader and understanding of some cause and effect things, basic, but those are also really fun.
A wonderful, wonderful thing. So this particular app, though, is called Nighty Night.
It's $1.99.
$1.99. It's by Good Beans, because I know sometimes when you get to the store and you put in, there are multiple things named this, so this is the one that's by Good Beans. All right, good stuff.
Yes.
With Ashley. Thank you. We absolutely love this.
Thank you for having me.
And what we'd love to hear from people is if you try this app out and if it gets your child to go to sleep, let us know and write in and tell us about it.
Right.
Cool. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for letting me share.
I can't wait to see what you bring next week.
I know. I have some good stuff. Boys' toys.
Oh, boys' toys. We'll look forward to that. All right. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with our school tips, so stick with us. Awesome. Currently, in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism, my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke? Guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Teacher has some glasses.
Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
I have 2 children with autism. I can't imagine a day without CARD or the therapists. They've been so instrumental in helping us with our kids and shaping their lives and helping us help them.
Thank you, Christina, Big Alex.
Thank you, Jackie and Mariana.
We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable, and recovery from autism is possible.
Say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hi, welcome back to Autism Live. I'm Lisa Ackerman. I've got Kristen Selby-Gonzalez here with me today, and the feedback overwhelmingly. Oh, chicken nuggets! It's probably one of the easiest recipes on the planet.
We know all of our kids love chicken nuggets.
Let's talk about corn. GMOs, genetically modified foods, are no bueno for a lot of folks, and we agree. So I've actually called the manufacturers to make sure these are GMO-free product. Really simply, what I did with the corn flakes is just the old-fashioned crush away. That's just the easiest way. Maybe you can crush that a little bit for me.
That's something our kids can help us with,
yeah.
Too, if we're doing cooking with them.
Well, and fine motor improvement.
Absolutely.
Boom. Sensory issues. Boom. A lot of people will over-season. They season for adults. So from the standpoint of just putting it in enough flavor. Now that we got our base, our coating in, I'm going to work on how we coat the chicken. Now, Kristen, was Jax ever allergic to eggs?
He has been.
There's a lot of options with eggs. Don't you know that you can also look at duck eggs,
really?
Quail eggs, and other types of eggs that even though they look the same in the bowl, they're different on the allergy panel. Let's say you find out you're allergic to every egg on the planet. You can use a little bit of water and arrowroot starch. I've got a high-grade stainless steel, non-Teflon frying pan. I'm using high heat oil, getting all ready to go. So we're just really easily going in and coating the chicken.
Now, when I'm flipping these, Lisa, do I flip over and over, or do I just cook one side and then the other?
You know, I prefer to cook one side because what happens is the good coating that you spent all this time crushing for me falls off.
Gotcha.
Bonus.
About how long do you cook on each side?
About 4 minutes on each side will do it. And I think you're almost there. Yeah, you're good. You're golden. Good. Fantastic. So if you want to take them out. So now that we got the last batch in, let me take you through what these finished babies look like. Like I said, you're going to have some happy families out there wanting to eat this. This is so easy. You saw how quickly we got in and done. Just want to remind everyone, we really want feedback at Autism Live and want to know what you want to see next. So if you've got an idea, a recipe you want us to convert or to talk about a particular topic, we'd love to hear from you. You could do that at autismlive@gmail.com or Facebook land. We're all on Facebook, facebook.com/autismlive. And then again, there's already thousands of recipes waiting for your eyeballs to go cruise over on the TACA website. We'll look forward to seeing you next time on Autism Live. Thanks for joining us.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Welcome back. It's time for our weekly school tip. And we've talked before about how important it is that if we're going to send our children into a school setting, to make it as rewarding for everyone as possible. And we've talked recently about volunteering time and about making sure that the IEP is in language that everybody at the school setting has access to and can understand, and that they have access to and can understand your behavior intervention plan. So we've talked about all that, but I want to take a minute today and talk about making it a really reinforcing place for our children. And there are a couple of different ways in which we can do that, right? First of all, we can set our kids up for success in the morning and make sure that that there are things to look forward to. You know, let's face it, we all have days when we're looking at things and we kind of lay there in bed and we go through the day and go, oh, okay, well, I got to do this, this, and this during the day, right? And some days you kind of want to pull the covers up over your head and go, I don't want to today, right? And I don't know about the rest of you, but I was taught at a very early age, my mom would say to me, think about one thing during the day that you're really excited about, because that tends to be enough to get you up and get you excited about things. And I try to do that as much as possible with my son when he's getting up in the morning to talk about something. And if it's something that happens at school, so much the better. But if it's something that happens after school, that also counts too, because he knows that in order to participate in things that happen after school, he's got to go to school. We have it set up in our house that if you're sick, boy, you can stay home. And there's, nobody's saying that you can't stay home if you're sick. But if you're sick, that means that you stay in bed and we don't play video games and we don't see friends and we don't go places and, we don't get to play with toys. You're in bed because you don't feel well. And that way, when he says, I don't feel well, I need to stay home, I know he doesn't feel well, right? So finding something during the day to remind your child, today is, and I also think it's ideal for hooking up what happens on what days, so we go, today's Tuesday. So today is the day that you go to the library. What kind of a book are you going to pick today, right? Getting him excited about that. If your child is into books and going to the library. A thing to build early on to make that as reinforcing as possible. But, whatever it is that your child has at school, or talking to them at school about what happens on Wednesday. On Wednesday, do the kids get to go out on the playground and play kickball? Does the music teacher, if you still have that in your school, does the music teacher come by on Thursday? And making a note of it for yourself or on the calendar so that you can remind your child that that there are things to look forward to. We all need things to look forward to. And again, if you can't find it during the school day, finding things afterwards and making sure we're reinforcing kids for the job that they do at school. I've shared before on the program that my son has a token economy sticker board that if he gets his stickers, then he gets access to the things that he wants after school. Yesterday was a great example. They had a half day and it was parent-teacher conference, and because the grade that my son is in right now, they've moved to letter grades for the first time, and it's a very big deal. And when I was a kid, my mother, I lived back east, and they used to have Carol's Burgers. This is how old I am. Way before McDonald's was known everywhere, they had Carol's Burgers, and they made smaller hamburgers. And Carol's ran a thing that whenever the report cards came out, for every A that a child got, they would give a free hamburger. And so my mother would always take us to Carol's afterwards, and we would get this huge bag of these little itty-bitty hamburgers to take home. And the whole family would get to have this huge picnic, and it was wonderful, and you looked forward to it, and you counted up your A's, and it was very, very exciting. And so I wanted to make it really exciting for my son yesterday, and the school had a fundraiser with Chuck E. Cheese. And I don't know about you, I had the epiphany yesterday when we were at Chuck E. Cheese, and I saw all these kids with their little cups, with their little gold tokens running around, putting them in the machines, and everybody was so excited because they'd gotten the report cards and done such a great job. And I looked at Chuck E. Cheese and I went, oh my goodness, I never noticed it before. They're little kiddie casinos. That's exactly what they are. Has everyone else noticed this before and I just missed it? But that's what they are, kiddie casinos. Down to the little cup with the coins in them. It was fascinating. And that you get tickets if you did well on the game. They're casinos for kids. But in any case, we made a big deal of it yesterday. You got your report card, you did well in your parent-teacher conference, and he didn't do superlative in everything, but we focused on what he did well on. he did well in everything, but, everything wasn't an A. Let's say that. But we talked about how many A's he did get and how excited we were about that, and made sure that he knew and linked up, when I do well at school, good things happen, and mom and dad spend some extra time and do some extra things with me. So I think it's so important that we build in, we can't do it alone. School has to make it exciting too. But as parents, we do have control over some things, and we do have control over the consequence part of this, right? And we do have control over the antecedent part. So getting them set up in the morning so that they're excited to go to school, and rewarding them when they come home and saying, job well done, sets the child up to appreciate and want to go to school. I do see with my 9-year-old that it started about 7, that when he was in kindergarten and first grade and even in preschool, he looked forward to go to school. Oh man, he would wake up and ask, is it a school day? He was so thrilled to go to school. And the older he's gotten, the more that it's starting to shift the other way, and that he says, we got 4 days off, Mom. He's excited about that. I think that's typical behavior, but I still need for it to be as exciting as possible for him. And I got to work a little harder so that he sees how great it is to go to school and is excited about it. Anything we can do. If it's a little girl who loves to have new shoes to go to school, then we spend a little extra on the shoes. Whatever it takes for kids to be excited to walk onto that campus, we want to work it that way. And of course, we want to reward and reinforce when they've gotten there, done a great job, even if the whole thing wasn't perfect. Find the way, catch them doing something good, right? We always say that here. Okay, we're going to take a break and go to the A word now. This is the wonderful documentary being made here by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. They're following a little boy, Jack Riley, who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. He has started his early intensive behavioral intervention. They have therapists coming to the home and regular every other week clinics where the whole team gets together and discusses his progress. And he's been doing this now for a good 10 months. And we see a great deal of progress has been made. And I love this particular episode because we get to see what it's like for Dad, that he's gotten some hope. He has seen, okay, this works. But the first time that something new comes along, it puts it all in question for him. And I think we can all relate to that. So take a look. This is the A word.
Social ID questions are just basic questions that anyone would ask you, like what's your name, what's your age, how are you, and we're teaching him, to reply. My name's Jack Riley, I'm 2 years old, and when we ask him, how are you, he's supposed to say I'm fine or I'm good, just so it's a conversation starter. I didn't probe through what he knows yet, but he might surprise me. I don't know. He always does. How old are you? 2. Oh, wow. 2 like this? Can you do it? Oh, that's a good try. Can you do the fingers? You trying? 2. There you go. What's your name? All right, well, I guess he knows those. Hey, what's your name? Jack Riley. Yay! There's Jack Riley! Woohoo! You're so smart! You're so smart! Poof. Yay! Where's Jack Riley? Oh, there he is! Should we show Dad your cool new trick? Hey, Jack Riley, who is that? It's Susan. Yeah. Who's this? Who's this? It's Daddy. Yay! Who's this? It's Nose. No, who's this? Who's this? It's a baby. It's a bat. It's a dog. And my time will come. It's son. Tiger, tiger. His mom was saying he was getting so excited that he's discovering new like phonetic sounds on his own, like with things that he knows, like dinosaur and pancake. Hey, what's this one? Duh. Dinosaur. Good job. What about buh? Good job. How about this one?
Wow, good. Book.
What about this?
Car.
What about this one? Good. Nice. What about this guy? Jack Riley, where'd you go? What's this?
It's a potato.
Yeah, so.
It's a potato.
Let's go for a bike ride. There he goes. Wow. Suzanne's so impressed. Oh, say hi. Oh. Are you all done, Jack? No, stop. Are you all done? Then you need to sit on the bike. Come sit on the bike.
Can't pretend to play.
No. Stop. Come back.
Jack Riley requests the bike but doesn't play with it. Since he is no longer being compliant with Jessica, they leave, which begins a tantrum.
Okay, then we're all done. We're all done then. Come on.
Honey, what's up? My son's auditioning for Othello right now.
It is a fight.
Jack, calm down. Okay, come here. I forget. I'm trying to be the hero.
Mike is supposed to ignore the tantrum because giving him attention may prolong the tantrum and make it worse.
Every time we asked him to do anything, he sat down. And sort of, not violent is the wrong word, but roughly, to where, he almost threw his head back on cement a couple times. Where I grabbed his arms and lowered him because he was going to throw his head back. I thought, I have some tools that I use from you guys. None of them worked. The only thing I think it was more energy. You know what I mean? He's cooped up, and then there's no way I'm doing what you asked me right now. I got to see lawn. I think he just was like, I'm not doing what you do. I'm going to play right now. And so we tried that to where differentiate. If you go on the lawn, you can play, but you're going to walk with me, and then you can play. No, it did not work. It was sort of a setback in my mind. Like I hadn't seen this behavior. I had no idea what to do.
Well, that's why we're here.
I know. So not to make it dire, but yesterday to me was sort of a rough day. It was surprising to me. I know I make a lot of mistakes when I'm with him when he does stuff like that, but I know somewhere in here the tools are there. But yesterday I was like, they just all went out the window because he was just nothing was working. He was the boss yesterday. I couldn't figure it out. You do the A-word thing, and sometimes I'm set back when he does something brilliant. He is who he is, and he'll be who he'll be. But I want him to go on dates and not be necessarily the 180 IQ guy who's focused on one thing. He does things that I just go, look at Cheryl, go, oh my God. I don't think I can do that now.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I was just watching the A Word. I could watch it forever, and I want to encourage everybody that you can see the full gamut of those clips and that they've edited together on their YouTube channel. Really amazing series for so many reasons. But I'm so thrilled to welcome here in the studio Angela Persicke, BCBA Board Certified Behavior Analyst with extensive experience working with children on the autism spectrum. We call this segment Breaking It Down with Angela because she breaks sit down for us. We should also say that you do a great deal with research now. Tell us what your title is.
I am the Assistant Director of Autism Research Group, as well as a Research and Development Supervisor at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders.
Right. And so I find that fascinating because Angela comes in from time to time and shares with us things that they're working on and information. I had the opportunity to go last spring to ABAI.
Oh, yes.
Which is ABA International, this humongous event that was just crazy good. And I didn't see a whole lot of parents there. And I have to say, I had never heard about it in a way that was welcoming to a parent. I'd never heard, oh, this is an option for you. I hear about all these other autism conferences, but I'd never heard, oh, a parent can go to this, but more and more are. And it was fascinating to see all the things that you guys research. Just crazy amounts of Emily and I went to some of the paper sessions, the poster sessions, and they basically a football field 2 and 3 times a day that they will set up, and people put up a poster of their research and they stand by it, and you get to walk up to the poster, look at what the research is about, and ask them questions about it. And there's no time to see all of them.
No.
And all of them aren't to do with autism, by the way. You know, a wide variety of different things, but a lot of them are about autism. Fascinating.
Yeah, they're, you know, most of the posters are actually research that students are conducting in master's programs, even undergrad programs, and doc level programs.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times you'll go and you'll see all these projects that these students are doing, and it's amazing. It's amazing the vast amount of research that is actually going on within this field. And so much so that they had to, especially in the field of autism, they had to break off and create their own conference. So it's the ABAI, Association for Behavior Analysis International Autism Conference.
Yes.
And so they have a specific conference just for the autism track.
Yes, and they just had it recently, and we didn't get to go. It was in Portland, but I know Dr. Jonathan Tarbox went. Did you go with him?
I did not this time.
I heard it was great, though, and maybe next year we'll have the opportunity to go to that particular conference. But if you want to see some of the interviews that we did with people, you can, on our YouTube page, you can put in ABAI Seattle or ABAI 2012, and you can see all the interviews that we did. There was one in particular that I just came back and ranted and raved about, some graduate students that did a study on how to reduce the number of steps in teaching tying your shoes, and I just got a big kick out of it because we happened to be going back and teaching shoe tying again to my son because of the mom that I am, that for 2 years I let him Velcro shoes, and he lost the skill. So we were reteaching it, and I was going through, okay, it's this many steps, and if there were 3 less steps I could do, it was very exciting.
Yeah, exactly. And these are the types of studies that people in our field do all the time.
Yes.
You know, and it's not something that you necessarily think, oh, this is such a big research initiative, teaching, you know, fewer steps to tie a shoe, but for practical reasons, that's so important. It takes so much less time, it's more efficient, and they showed that it actually works better. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
As well.
It was better. So really fascinating, and we love having an opportunity to talk to you about research from time to time. But today we've asked you, because we've had so many people writing in and talking about friendship.
Yes.
And how to make friends and how to keep friends. We wanted to have you talk with us about some tips that you can help us with based on your experience and research that you've read or seen, how we get this job done.
Yes, it's a huge, huge task, and for most kids with autism, this is the most difficult thing they face. And a lot of parents who I talk to will say, like, how do I get more friends? How do I get my child to have a group of friends? I can't be there with him at school, and so, you know, I can plan these play dates, but who knows if he's actually friends with these people and they're friends with him. And it's something that seems like a big, daunting task.
It is.
How am I going to get my child to a place where they have these significant relationships in their lives? And it's so important to us socially to have friends, and it's actually a lot of people struggle with it in the world.
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
general.
Whether you're on the spectrum or not, it can be difficult because there's so many components to it. And I think, quite honestly, listening to you talk about it, for a lot of us with kids on the spectrum, we think it's just supposed to happen like fairy dust, right? That we'll take our kids to the park enough and they'll just make friends, and we take them on a play date and it'll just happen. And then when it doesn't, then we say, okay, well, why isn't this happening? And then we are daunted because we see, oh my gosh, somebody reminds us, think of all the skills that go into play to be friends. Then we go, okay, this is insurmountable. We'll never get there. So first it's pixie dust, and then it's Mount Everest. And the truth of the matter is that it's somewhere a little bit in between. It is Mount Everest, but you can climb it.
Yeah, just like a lot of the things that we've talked about in the past, it seems like this huge, daunting skill that how will my child ever learn this? And it seems to happen so naturally with other kids. And so why, what are the skills? And really, what we do with everything is we look at all of the skills required from the time the child is 2 years old even, or like starts playing with other kids or other toddlers, to the time that they're a teenager, and we see, okay, what are the skills required for this? What are the different components in making friends? How does that even happen?
So Angela, are you saying we break it down?
We break it down,
and that's why we call it Breaking It Down with Angela. I think we should take a break and then come back and break it down.
Definitely.
So we're going to be talking about making friends. We already have a question that's come in about it, so stick with us. More Breaking It Down with Angela after this. Have you ever noticed that when you do something nice for someone else, you feel great afterwards? It's because in that moment you know you've shown kindness and compassion in a world that sometimes can seem chaotic and isolating. Well, this April, for Autism Awareness Month, Autism Live is asking everyone to put compassion in action. We all expect others to show compassion to our kids, to us, and to our families. What better way than to show compassion ourselves? That's why I'm asking everyone to do something nice for someone else. If we all take just one act of compassion, who knows? Maybe we can change the world. So watch Autism Live to find out how you can participate in our Compassion in Action campaign. And then make sure you tune in on April 8th, when I will shave my head 5 for a young dad with cancer. That's my way of taking action and compassion. We are not powerless. We can create change. Compassion in action. Feel the love and the breeze. Welcome back. We are here for Breaking It Down with Angela. She's a BCBA, a board-certified behavior analyst, and we're talking about how to make and keep friends, and we've said we're going to break it down, so here we go.
Well, if we're going back to the very, very beginning, and we talk about this a lot with social skills, how important eye contact is.
Yeah.
So, when you have friends, of course, you're going to make eye contact with them, you're going to listen to them, you're going to respond to them. But getting a child to a point where they're able to look at people and make that eye contact is really important.
Yeah.
And so this can, and we start this very, very young.
Yeah.
And children can learn this fairly quickly, too, with ABA. So even starting with something very simple with eye contact will increase the amount of social interactions in general your child will be receiving. And so starting there, no matter what age your child is, what developmental level, just look at eye contact. Are they making eye contact?
Yeah, and I got to interrupt for just a second to say, you might be sitting there thinking, well, I've got a 14-year-old, and my child's going to high school, and I need to... But I love that you're saying no matter what age, this is the place to start, because you see your child trying to interact with people and it not working out. And, we have to go back to setting them up for success. And if your child I see it happen all the time. Even now, my child does eye contact pretty well, but he'll miss something at some point. He'll be talking to somebody, and he's talking to them, but he's talking over here and not making the eye contact. And that child doesn't know that they're talking to him. And so he misses that opportunity. So going back and starting to work on eye contact, and as you said, it is something that our kids can learn and do very easily. I think we have to keep up on it. I certainly have to keep up on it. But a really core important thing to do no matter how old. If you have a 21-year-old who's not making eye contact, you got to start at the beginning. Right?
Exactly.
Okay.
It's not too late to start at the beginning.
Yes, it's never too late to start at the beginning.
Exactly. So then there are some other component skills that you can look at. So, something we talked about last week, actually. So attending to what's going on in the environment. So especially when it's other people talking or entering the room. And this goes along with eye contact, too. When someone comes in the room or someone says something, the child should look over, see what's going on. Is that person talking to me? And this is just a simple orienting to different stimuli, but it's social stimuli because it's different people. And this isn't necessarily a difficult skill to teach either. It's just someone walks in the room or someone says something and you prompt your child to look and make eye contact. And of course you can see why eye contact beforehand would be more important. But it's building on that eye contact and then attending to what's going on in the environment.
And I have to say that I think that all parents need to be doing this. They certainly used to in previous generations. There are so many people who will say to me now, I have a business, and when I go to hire kids that are teenagers or young adults, even kids who are fresh out of college, that they will come in for the interview, they don't make good eye contact, and their attention seems to be scattered. They're on the phone looking at the, and texting people during job interviews and things. And I know it's all very convenient at a certain age that we need to talk to somebody. We hand our phone to our kid or hand them the iPad or whatever. But super duper important that we teach all of our kids, whether they're on the spectrum or not, that in social situations you need to put that stuff aside. Haven't you seen on Facebook people saying that they've started going to dinner with their friends and making a pile of the cell phones in the center of the table and saying the first person that reaches for their phone pays for the dinner because we're all having trouble attending to social stimuli because we, even yesterday at Chuck E. Cheese, we went to Chuck E. Cheese and at one point I sat down to check my email and I thought this is bad.
And I'm guilty of it too. My phone has different sounds for emails and text messages and something goes off and I'm like, oh, I need to check that right now. And that really does hinder social relationships because you're no longer attending to the person, you're attending to something else, and that's distracting, and you're probably not listening to another person who's talking if you're attending to something else. And we see this all the time with our kids if they're engaged in an activity that they really enjoy. Someone says something and
they're doing their activity like we're in our phones. I mean, we can understand this behavior, but it's important that we model the behavior. Right? It starts with us, I don't want to. It's hard. And that we model the behavior and that we teach it to them and that we prompt them on a regular basis. I wish more parents, I see all kinds of parents who are not prompting. I'm there prompting my child saying, you need to look at, Mrs. Carpathian as you say goodbye. Right? And I'm looking at all of his neurotypical peers and they're like, bye. And nobody's prompting them. So I do think it's important that we do this with our kids especially, but that honestly, it's okay if everybody did it.
Yeah, if everybody did it more often, it would be better because you think about it too. If you're teaching your child at home to look and attend to people, and especially when you're for greetings and salutations, and then they see all their peers at school not doing this, it's going to be much more difficult to have this behavior generalized to other settings because they're not required to do it at school or with their friends.
But this is one of these things things when we talk about it, if we're really diligent and teach these things to our kids, not only will they catch up in these social skill arenas, but sometimes they surpass their peers. And so if, later on, when it's your 17-year-old who's applying for the job and all these other kids that the parents didn't, neurotypical 17-year-olds that nobody prompted, your child's going to do a better job at the job interview. So these are marketable skills.
Yes.
And they do help with making friends along the way. So worthwhile to work on.
So we're still talking about some component skills to get started. So, building in the eye contact and attending to people, looking at them where they're talking, also greetings and salutations. This is something that is referred to as friendly behavior.
Yeah.
And this is something that we teach our kids. So we teach them what's the difference between friendly and unfriendly behavior, and how would you respond to different people depending on your levels of friendship.
Right.
So this is taking a little bit of a bigger step, but it can start as soon as sharing and turn taking.
Right.
So little kids, you would prompt them to take turns and share. Right. And this is where later on we'll get into a little bit more of perspective taking and why you would share a toy with a friend.
Right.
But initially you don't need those skills you would just reinforce appropriate turn taking, appropriate sharing. Right. And that's when you start to see kids playing together more often. Yeah. If a child isn't sharing his or her toys, another friend would probably not want to play with him.
Right.
So starting with things like that during play activities, sharing and turn taking is another initial component in making friends.
And it's a bunch of components, but these are the ones even before we get into all the other more difficult skills to have in place.
Exactly.
Great. So is this a good time to take a break? I'd like to take a break and then come back and talk about some of the more difficult things in keeping friends and all the potential problems. And we also have a question that we're going to come back and talk about. So stick with us. More Breaking It Down with Angela after these messages.
Every child with autism deserves a bright future.
Without further clarification, the Affordable Care Act could actually result in less benefits for individuals with autism spectrum disorders.
We urge Catherine Sebelius to clarify the Affordable Health Care Act.
She can make one change, one little minor change, to make applied behavioral analysis be part of the health care plan.
By signing this petition, you are protecting the health care benefits of individuals with autism spectrum disorders.
We need to make sure
that we are heard
and seen.
Sign the petition at autism-live.com.
Here's how you can show your infinite support. Create your own infinity ribbon. What you're going to do is take a ribbon that's been cut about 8 inches long, and you're going to grab one end and then twist it, and then take the two ends and join them together, and then tape it together. And then I'm going to flip it around and take another piece of tape, and what I have is double-sided sticky tape. Squeeze down. You have your very own infinity ribbon.
With ABA,
the possibilities are infinite.
With ABA,
the possibilities are infinite.
With ABA,
the possibilities are infinite.
With ABA,
The possibilities are infinite. With ABA,
the possibilities are infinite. With ABA,
the possibilities are infinite. Welcome back. We're here with Angela Persicke. She is a BCBA, a board-certified behavior analyst. We call this segment Breaking It Down with Angela, and we're breaking down how to teach our children the skills to help them to make friends and keep friends. We had a question that came in via the live feature. Somebody wrote in and said, my son has very few male friends compared to girlfriends. Is it that girls are more patient and with language delays? I want so much for him to do boys stuff and not be swayed to do girls' activities just because of his language delay. Any advice? And they also wrote, Shannon, does Jem have boyfriends or mostly girlfriends? And I have to be honest that there was a period of time when I would say that the mix was much more girl than boy. And when it's kids that he doesn't know well, he does better with the girls than he does with the boys, especially at this age, because, this wonky thing, once they get to 8 and the boys are so busy being aloof and cool. But it's very specific girls that he gets along well with, and very specific boys that he gets along well with. And I think that the shift has been this last year that he's much more interested in the boys and the things that the boys are doing. But there's one thing that my son has at school. Part of his services, he has something called Lunch Bunch, that he gets together with a bunch of his peers that are his age at lunchtime, and they get to play board games and stuff, and there's a facilitator there that helps him with social language to interact with the kids. It's great, and he looks forward to it. But in our last conference, the speech and language pathologist who leads it said, I just want you to know that it's already started to be a problem, and it will get worse every year from here on out. The boys won't want to come in and do this because they want to run and be active. And so you need to consider, what are we going to do about that? Because it's going to be girls who want to come in and do this. The boys are busy, out on the playground. And so that's been a really interesting what they say in cartoons, it's a revolting development. Right? So I feel you there. And his relationship with boys tends to cycle in and out of that they, one day they're best friends and the next day they're not speaking to each other. So I'm really interested to hear what you say about making friends and keeping friends.
This is a tough question, actually, because the dynamics between little kids and how they play and everything, and how how girls respond to people versus boys. It's not like a big area that's been really looked into in research, how are girls, how do they communicate at such a young age, and how is that different from boys? There are probably some studies in this. I'm definitely not aware of the research for it, but I would assume maybe that when girls play together, their playtime is often more structured. Yeah. So they're like, we're going to play house. You're going to be this character. You're going to be this character and this character. Or we're going to play this.
You're being generous. What I like to say is the girls are bossier.
Yes. Most of the
just
time.
cut right to the thing. Girls tend to be bossier. They set up the parameters, the rules. This is how we're going to do it. It's going to be my way.
Yes, I was being more polite. But yeah, that's the perfect way to do it. And for an individual who's on the autism spectrum, this might be more comfortable. Right. He doesn't have to determine what he wants to be, who he wants to be, how this relates to what the other kids are doing. Those are a lot of complex skills where a girl will say, okay, you're going to be this. Right. And this is how you're going to act. And a lot of times girls will immediately give feedback, too. Yeah. If the boy is not doing it right, they'll say, no, you need to say it like this. Right. Where other boys might not do that. Right. They might just start to exclude the other child. Yeah. So I can understand why younger boys, in elementary school may have, especially on the autism spectrum, may have more friends as girls. Yeah. For that reason. Of course, I'm just speculating, right. But that would be understandable because it is easier. But as far as making friends, it starts a little bit with determining others' desires, others' preferences, and how those may be the same or different from their own. So this starts to get into perspective taking. So what do I like to do? What does he like to do? And how are those things different? Because a lot of times we'll see kids who are like, well, I love this this Batman game. And that's all they want to do all the time. And they don't consider that might be different than what another child will do. And of course, if you have a play date and your child, all he wants to do is play this Batman video game the whole time, and the other child's bored with it and he doesn't want to play, you can understand why there might be something going on with that friendship. It might not be developing in the same manner.
Right. But sort of the flip could be, we could put this to our use. Yeah. And that if what you want are more boyfriends, then finding out what the boys are interested in, helping your child to have some skills and interest in that area. One of the things that was said to me early on was that try to be the mom that gets invited to birthday parties by making sure you give a good gift, right? Whatever it is, and helping out. my thing was that I took pictures and sent them to the moms, and that got out, and so we got invited to all the birthday parties, right? And then I had this great excuse that I could call and say, so what's your kid into? What's he playing with right now, right? Which is perfectly acceptable. You can ask that of another mom, and you've gotten their phone number on the thing. So what's he into right now? And they go, oh, well, he's into Beyblades. And I'd go, Bay what? Yeah. Bay what? You know, no idea. I remember being in the aisle of Walmart going, do you know about this thing called Beyblades? I had no idea. And so you find out what the toys that year are, and then you go buy your kid those toys, work with them to be good at those toys and to like those toys, and you build them as reinforcers so that when you do the play date, they're playing with the same thing.
And this is a perfect example of what we were talking about earlier, that this isn't just going to happen like with a miracle, you know, and you had to work at this. You had to call the other parents and find out what the kids were into, and actually learn to teach your child to be into that by reinforcing those behaviors. And so, you know, if your child is playing more with girls, then they'll start to do things like this. Okay, what are the toys that boys like this year? What is going on? And like, let's try to get my child interacting with these toys. And if your child likes typical girl toys or something for some reason, and probably because he's been hanging out with a group of girls, then you know, you could even use those other toys as reinforcers for playing with, you know, more typical boy toys that his friends are into. And that's really, you know, getting into the preferences and desires, and that's what we're talking about. And again, this initial step doesn't necessarily require him to be thinking about what others like and desire, and that's the perspective-taking component. But this initial step is just getting your child to start to enjoy the toys that his other friends are enjoying too.
And having a reference point to have a conversation. You know, Dr. Grandpichet pointed out last week that when we go to a party, you know, and we don't know anybody there, we like to have a conversation that we can grab onto, or something that we can grab on to make friends as adults. And if we give that to our kids, you know, so we're going to talk about video games now, or, and as we've been talking about this, I've been thinking about the fact that I have a really good friend that has 3 boys, and her oldest child is a couple of years older than my son. Her middle child is a little more than a year older than my child, and her youngest child is 9 months younger than my son. And I will call her up and say, what are each one of them into, to sort of gauge. And it was 2 Christmases ago that she said to me, this is the Christmas of the Skylander, Shannon, so make sure that you get him Skylanders. This year I didn't do the Giants because it got off the hook. But when we have play dates, kids come over and they want to play Skylanders with my kid, and that gives him that basis.
Exactly.
It gives him a language. He's got enough proficiency that he can hold his own. They can play together. There are objects for them to interact with, so it's not all just video, because they have these little characters that you set on the thing and the character goes into the game. It's kind of cool.
That's cool.
So, you know, finding what that key is in your age range and with the kids that they're going to be playing with gives them a language.
Exactly. And practicing it with them. Practice scenarios where you'd be playing with your child and then say things like, oh, have you heard of this toy? You know, to just give him some examples of how he could respond to these situations. Because it happens all the time. And what we say all the time is the most important thing is to practice and practice and practice.
Opportunities.
And provide these opportunities and then reinforce appropriate responding. And so when your child brings up a topic that is you know, within the same realm of what the other kids are playing with, reinforce that. Even if you are there with the play date, you know, just pull your kid aside for a second and say, awesome job talking about Beyblades or whatever it is that you know, they're into right now.
And you can compliment both children too. We forget that sometimes too, that you know, if your child says something and asks a question and you feel self-conscious about saying, hey, good job, you can say, you guys are doing such a good job of playing together. What a wonderful thing. And because of that, if you guys keep playing good together, we're going to have popsicles later on, or whatever the thing is, but, nice job playing together. Then both kids go, oh, hey, we're doing a good job. It's not impossible.
Exactly. And this begins with friendship because common interests.
Yeah.
Common things that they can talk about. And these are the building blocks of building, these long-term friendships where you have this relationship with another person that is very reinforcing.
Yes.
And that's what you want to continue. And so with maintaining these friendships,
that's a whole other subject, isn't it?
It's a whole other topic.
Okay, we should take a break, and then we'll come back and talk about maintaining those friendships. So stick with us.
My name is Rocky.
Autism used to affect 1 in every 10,000 children. Now it affects 1 in every 91 kids.
TACA is one of 5 organizations helping families living with autism today.
Our kids came back to life. There's a whole community out there, and now we're a part of it.
Oh, TACA has a place for me.
To find TACA, go to www.tacanow.org.
Please.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're doing a segment right now called Breaking It Down with Angela. We have Angela Persicke, a board-certified behavior analyst with us, and we're talking about breaking down how do we make friends and keep them. So now we're in the portion, we've talked a little bit about how we can help our child with core skills before we do anything, how once they've got those core skills, how we can give them a like interest that can help them to have a language to be able to do with the other child, to find friends. And now we're on to the important subject of maintaining friends. And this is sort of a workshop that all of us could use a brush up in, right?
Yes, completely.
Because it's difficult in our busy lives. You make a friend, and then being able to maintain a friendship for any length of time can be difficult for a lot of people.
Exactly. And this is where the real bulk of it is perspective taking.
Okay.
That you have to think about what the other person is thinking, how they're feeling, how I should respond to them in different situations, how to be empathetic. Just a bunch of things like this that require thinking about other people's thoughts and emotions. And this is more advanced, but of course we teach it every day to our kids, and we're able to do this. When you're thinking about maintaining a friendship, you think about what are things I can do to this person continuously that are friendly? Right. I need to continue being friendly, and I need to think about the other person. And it's a very difficult skill.
Yeah.
Very difficult.
Because it isn't just, as you say, it's perspective taking, because it's not just what would I want for them to do for me, what would they want, what would be helpful to them, because not everybody wants the same thing, right?
Exactly.
We've been talking a lot about compassion and action, about do unto others as you would have them do unto you, but it becomes a little bit finer when we're talking about friendships and relationships, because what's reinforcing to me isn't necessarily reinforcing to you. And being able to put yourself in the mindset of, okay, what is reinforcing to that person? That's a lot to ask little kids.
It is. But even, looking at smaller components of this. So let's say your friend really likes this, really likes this video game. I know you don't like this video game.
Right.
But how would your friend feel if he didn't get to play this with you? Or how would he feel if he did get to play this? And this is desire-based emotion. So looking at others' desires and determining how they would feel if that desire was met or not met.
Yeah.
So even talking these through, or what does your friend like to do? Is that what you like to do too?
Yeah.
How are they different? How are they the same? And that's where you can start perspective taking, really, really basic with sensory perspective taking. And we've talked about this before.
Right.
What do you hear? What does your friend hear?
Yeah.
What do you see? What does your friend see?
Yeah.
And to start to build up that the skill of your child thinking about how his perspective is different than someone else's.
Yeah.
And that's really important in friendships because, of course, like you said, you can't just think of what's going to be reinforcing for you, what's going to make you happy. You have to think about what's going to make your friend happy.
And what you see is this is so very complicated, and that it's always a thing where you're readjusting course. I don't know if you were with me on the show when I was talking about that a couple of weeks ago. My son has a friend in school that he just adores, that they've had a really good year together, and we had the boy over for a play date, and he has a younger brother, and so his younger brother comes with him. The mom came with him when we had a play date, and the two older boys had such a good time, but the younger boy, it was hard for him because he just kept feeling like he was being left out, and it was really, really miserable. And the play date was over probably a little bit earlier because of that, because he kept on saying, Mom, I want to go home. They're not playing with me. And even though we were prompting the two older boys to play with him, they were having a difficulty doing it, right? And as the younger sister, I really felt this little boy's plight. So when it was our turn to go over to their house for the play date, I front-loaded Jem with all this stuff and said, now make sure you play with the younger brother. Don't leave him out because you don't want the play date to be shorter because, he wants you to go home, and it's important to pay some attention to the younger brother. Well, we got there, and there was an activity that the younger brother was doing that Jem was already interested in. So now suddenly Jem was like, well, I know it was on his list of things that he was going to get reinforcement if he spent time with the younger brother. So he started playing with the younger brother to the exclusion of the older brother. Now the older brother comes downstairs and he says, Jem came to play with me, and all he's doing is playing with my brother. And, so, and then everybody was miserable after that play date too. It becomes this thing where you got to find the mix. And I honestly think that it would have been hard for any child.
Oh, yes.
Not just because of autism. That's a hard thing to negotiate. I can remember, being the left out younger sister, and I can remember my sister being mad if somebody played too much with me. It's difficult.
It is very difficult.
But you keep tweaking and pointing things out to your child and reinforcing them for walking through the difficult parts, right?
Exactly. And I love how you said that you had set it up so that he was going to receive reinforcement for that one thing. And that's great. That's the way that you want to go about it. That, and you can't assume that just your children playing with other children is going to be reinforcing to them. It's not necessarily always the case. And so you have to build in these backup reinforcers. But also, it's very difficult for any child, and I was a younger sibling too, and so it happened a lot. And this is where also some other social skills, such as like compromise and negotiations, and being able to teach your child to do that. And it's noticing too when other people are feeling left out.
Yeah, because that's what he missed.
Exactly.
And I hadn't put that before we go on a play date or somebody comes over for a play date. We usually talk about 5 things. And then we pare it down to 3 things. That these are the 3 things we're working on for this play date, and this is what we'll do afterwards if you're, do a good job on these things. And sometimes you get it right which 3 things to work on, and other times you don't. But for the next one, it will be noticing if your friend is not happy with the amount of time you're spending. It wasn't on my list.
And that's where too you have to be aware of these things and not hold your child accountable for something you didn't necessarily practice. Because he's like, okay, I'm going to do these 3 things. I'm going to do them great, and I'm going to get whatever reward afterwards.
Right. But can I tell you, he was more bummed though when we left because at that point he noticed. He noticed on his own. He hadn't noticed during, and he said, I don't think it went well. Even though I did what you asked me to do, I don't think it went well because my friend is not happy with me. So he did notice that.
So that's great. And so he was able to identify that someone else was sad because of something, and he related to that to the situation. So that's like, okay, cause and effect. He's noticing all these things, which is so great. But
what he walked away with is, I'm not listening to you anymore. Which, he's 9. Maybe it's time for him to not listen to me anymore in terms of the play date. What do I know?
But thinking about and teaching your child to think about, okay, not just what was going on in the environment that may have caused him to feel like this, like what was going on on with that child's own thoughts.
Yes.
How was he feeling? Why do you think he was feeling like this? Was it because, A, B, or C, or whatever it was? And in this case, the child was feeling left out.
Yeah.
And that's a feeling, that's not something that, is out in the open that people often discuss. And so this is where perspective taking gets very complex, because he has to think about what the other child may or may not be thinking.
Right.
And it's not obvious, it's not discreet, it's not in the environment often, unless, maybe he's looking sad, but why is he looking sad? I have no idea.
Right.
But,
we've all seen those funny videos where somebody says something, but they hold up the sign for what's really going on in their head, and we all laugh. And that's, that's the neurotypical world. So imagine what that's like for individuals on the autism spectrum, where they're looking at things and going, well, why don't you say what you mean? That it's frustrating for them.
And this is where maintaining friendships become very difficult for kids who have deficits in perspective taking. Although we work on it and we teach these components, you get to a point with a friend where you don't necessarily have to ask them what's going on.
Right.
You get to a point where you're like, oh, this is why they're upset, and this is the cause, this is the effect, and this is how I should adapt my own behavior based on that. And this is really important for maintaining friendships, because if you come in every day or you're acting different, and the child is just like, oh, or whoever it is, it's just like, oh, hi, how you doing? Yeah, I'm having a great day. Awesome, talk to you later. And then you can see where friendships might start to fall apart.
Right. So, but we can take these things, the components of it, and teach the perspective taking, reinforce it. We can do it at home with us, and then potentially have it be, one child, and make sure that beforehand, like what I did with them, make sure that you spend time with the brother. Next time that we have a play date with them, I'll be saying, make sure that you notice if, the older boy is, getting all glum, that you spend more time with him.
Yeah, and practice.
And reinforce
practice. Yeah. And, this is a good place where just watching cartoons or TV, I mean, you see this all the time where one character, you have to infer what one character is feeling based on what another character does. And sometimes, that takes a lot of perspective taking on the viewer's part. And so even practicing that, where, like you said about American Idol, where you would often pause it and say, what are they saying? How is the singer feeling?
Right, we mute it.
Exactly.
And watch the body language and say, how is everybody feeling? Do they feel like they did a good job? Does Randy like it?
So there are very creative ways to practice this that are very important. And so when the child actually gets out there in the real world and is interacting with a friend, you can see this. Also, giving rules. If your child is able to follow rules, which is a skill also that needs to be taught, as simple as just when I say this, you do this, or when I hold up this signal, you do this, all the way to, in this situation, you should do this. So if a friend is crying, you should go over to them and say, how are you feeling? Are you okay? What's going on? And also giving your child, if perspective taking is very difficult, and if you're seeing your child struggle in this area, maybe even giving them ways to ask the other children. So not just teaching them necessarily to infer, but if your friend is unhappy or looks unhappy or is not playing with like the group of kids, this is what you should do. And so not necessarily having them think through this whole process and act on that, but maybe they could go up to their friend and say, why aren't you playing? So giving them skills like that, just giving them the skills to ask other questions would be really good too.
Fascinating stuff, all very, very helpful. We thank you so much for being here.
Of course.
Our time with you is over, unfortunately, because it's getting close to the end of the show, but I want to thank you so much, and we'll look forward to having you back next week, breaking more things down. So thank you for being here. We're going to take a short break and come back to finish out the show. Stick with us. Another parent wants to know, how do I find out that one thing that my kid is really good at?
Now, when they get older, they're going to kind of divide into two groups. You're going to have the kids that become verbal, and then you're going to have the kids that are nonverbal, got many more problems. Maybe they still have epilepsy or some other problem. And they kind of need different services. And the ones that get verbal, what we need to be doing with them is develop the area of strength. And that area of strength often will show up around 3rd or 4th grade, sometimes earlier. But my ability in art showed up when I was in 3rd and 4th grade, and it was always encouraged. And I was encouraged to do lots of different kinds of art. Otherwise, it would have just been endless horse heads. You know, Mother would say to me, why don't you draw a picture of a beach or something else? You want to broaden it out. If the kid's fixated on trains, let's teach reading with trains, math with trains. Tap into that fixation, but develop the area of strength. Some kids it's going to be art. Other kids it's going to be mathematics. So you got a 3rd grader who's smart in math, and he wants a 6th grade math book. Give him the 6th grade math book. Don't bore him with the baby stuff. But that kid's going to have trouble with reading, because the common thing is the uneven skills. And then you have the kids that are the history buffs, and these kids are often really good at writing skills. You tend to have uneven skills, but tap into their fixations and use those to motivate, but broaden. If he likes trains, just watching them, well, we're going to take that interest in trains to do some math with it, or maybe read about the history of the railroad. You know, tap into that motivation. One of the things I really want to talk about is we got to stretch these kids. I'm not talking about physically stretching them, mentally stretching them to do new things. I'm seeing too many kids that haven't learned how to shop, how to order food at McDonald's. So you start out, let's say it's ordering food at McDonald's or at Burger King. So you take them up there and they watch you order it. And then eventually you go in when the store's not busy, and they have to go up and order it while you're sitting at the table watching, and then you coach them. And then eventually they can go in the restaurant themselves. I can remember I was scared to go to the lumber yard alone and buy lumber. And Mother made me go. And she knew I could do it. I had bought lumber with her many times. But there's a tendency to want to have somebody else there when they do it, and they've got to learn how to do things alone. And you gradually have got to kind of push it. You've got to stretch them. And I'm seeing too many kids not learning basic skills. Saw a 19-year-old honors student that actually knows how to drive that had never shopped in the grocery store all by herself. That is just ridiculous. You know, you've got to stretch them. You push too hard, there can be panic. And the other thing is no surprises. No surprises. I knew all about the ranch long before I went there. I'd talked to Ann. But if you don't stretch these kids, they don't grow.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here at the end of the show, and unfortunately, this is the end of the week for us. We will not be doing a live show tomorrow, but we'll be back on Monday. I need to be at my son's school tomorrow, and I know you can all relate to that. Every once in a while, we have to do that. I have to say, we were talking with Lisa Gibbons yesterday, and last week we had Dr. Lisa Coyne. Was it last week or the week before? We had her in here, and it reminded me, both of these things have reminded me of all the priorities that we all have and how difficult it becomes on a daily basis as we're working our way through our lives and prioritizing. And along the way back when I started the radio show, and I was reminded of it again when this show started, somebody said to me, an autism parent who had, I won't say who it was, but an autism parent who's made a great deal of strides in our community and been very visible for a period of time. And the advice that was given to me was make sure that you don't lose sight of what's happening at home. That it's all very well and good to be a parent who's out there and talking about stuff, but make sure that it doesn't take you away from home so that you miss what's happening at home. And that was reminded to me this week again about priorities. And it was reminded to me when Dr. Lisa Coyne was here, and she said, okay, what's the priority for you? And she said, because a lot of times we have core values and they will butt up against each other. And she said, so what's the most important, what do you want to be able to say on the day that you die? What was the thing that you were good at? And in that initial moment, I had that thing of, this is why I have a problem in life, and then I was able to clear it in that second and say, no, what I want to be is a really good parent. And But the thing that wars that with that sometimes is that it's so important to me to be able to help as many other people get hooked up to the information that they need. But somebody reminded me, and Lisa Gibbons reminded me in her book Take Two this week, that that I do a better job here if I remember to do that good job at home. And so I'm making sure that I have opportunity tomorrow to be at my son's school, because I think we all have to find those priorities. And as much as I would love to be here with you, and I'll still be thinking about you, I got to make sure that I take care of that. And I encourage all of you to be focused in that way. And if you see me getting off the beaten track and not making sure that I'm keeping that first priority, because if I'm not walking that talk at home, I got nothing to say here, right? And so I want to make sure that I show up for my kid. So that's what's happening tomorrow. But a lot of exciting stuff that's happening next week, and I want to take just a second to talk about it. We're going to be having Julie Matthews with us next Wednesday for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. And we had Julie on for a short period of time a couple of weeks ago. She is widely considered the nutritional resource for autism families. She has a website and a book called Nourishing Hope. And I see that somebody had written in today when we ask you always, what do you want more information about? And somebody said the ketogenic diet, which can be very helpful for kids who have seizures. So that will be one of the things that we'll definitely make sure that we talk about with Julie Matthews when she's here. And if you have questions for Julie Matthews, it's a great opportunity to ask her a question in live time. She will be here with us live in the studio with myself and with Nancy Allspaw Jackson. And that is on Wednesday in the second hour. In that first hour on Wednesday, we always have Dr. Doreen Grampichet here with us live, and thrilled to have her. And you can keep your questions coming as well for her. But lots of exciting stuff that is happening next week. We've only got a couple of minutes here, but I also want to do a shout out that we've been getting information about a story, a very troublesome story that is happening, that is continuing to unfold in the Chicago area of a young 14-year-old with autism who was taken by his mother into the hospital and who was chained to a bed for, I believe, 21 days. And I know you can read more about this story both on Facebook, and I know they were covering it on Age of Autism, but they're asking for help and support. And if you go to Age of Autism, you can see the sites and read up to the minute what they're asking for people to do to help this mom get help for her son who is having medical issues. So I encourage you to take a look at that. Over the weekend, we'll still have an opportunity to look at Facebook and to get your comments and questions and be there for you guys. Big shout out. I know that a lot of you have been going to IEP and mediation meetings over this last week, and I appreciate hearing from those of you who've been in contact with us about how those are going. I'm so proud of all of you that I'm hearing from parents all over the place. I'm standing up. I'm saying this is what my child needs. I'm being reasonable. I'm being kind, but telling people this is who my child is, and this is what my child needs, and this is what we have to have in place, and that you're making great inroads and getting lots of great services for your kids. That's what it takes, man, and it's got an emotional toll, right? But I want you to know you're not alone. There are a lot of us standing by the sides and cheering you and saying, good job. You're making those priorities yourself, and you're teaching me on a regular basis, and I can't tell you what a privilege it is to be here. A mom sent me a picture this morning of her daughter, and we've got it hanging on the wall to remind us that every day that's what our core goal is. It's our kids. It's your kids. So we'll be back on Monday. Make sure you're here with us because we got lots of exciting stuff happening, and we're winding down to the hair cutting, right? Until Monday, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.